All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I'm joined by my guy, Swipa Cam, here as we are on the weekends with Swipa Grind here on July 2nd, following a lot of different moves that have gone on, different moves that haven't gone on if you're a Nuggets fan. And I think there's a lot to discuss, my guys. So we've got plenty of stuff to be able to talk about here. But first, how are you doing? What's the vibe like in the Swipa Cam house?
I'm living, bro. I'm enjoying my summer. I don't know about y'all. It's July 2nd. This is my birthday month. You know what I mean? I'm about to turn up, get crazy with my friends. My friends being the Swipa Game, Mile High Sports family. You know, have a great conversation, living the life of what it means to be an NBA champion and everything that follows that, including, all the money you don't have to spend on guys that get paid somewhere else. So, yeah, man, this is an interesting conversation going to be had today for sure.
Living the absolute dream, get to complain about everybody else's paychecks, get to complain about everybody else's money. I was told that you're not supposed to complain about what's in another man's pockets, but right now, I think that a lot of the limitations for Denver are they're more legally based, not necessarily because they don't want to spend. And we'll get into all of that. I'm sure that lots of Nuggets fans are pretty upset about it. Here we go. According to Ryan, the season is already over based off of this offseason. You're right. It's done. Can't win a championship from now on. It's funny. I said something very similar at the beginning of last offseason, and then they went and signed Bruce Brown. So, look, things can always change. I don't want to sit here and say that Denver can't turn things around a little bit, but I did want to react to free agency with you. I wanted to talk about some of the moves that the Nuggets made over the course of this past week, and even like dating back to the draft and what they decided to do there. The real important things, though, like that I think it's got everybody pressed. Bruce Brown and Jeff Green are out. Bruce Brown goes and gets the bag from Indiana. Jeff Green also gets more money than what he would have gotten in Denver, basically doubling up his salary. I have it pretty firm that Denver was offering the minimum that they could to him, which was it would have given him about $3 million. He went and got $6 million from Houston and doubled that money, which no blame. Like that's what Denver could offer. That's what actually it's not what Denver could offer. I think that they could have offered just a little bit more to Jeff than what they did, but they actually made that choice. And in making the choice to sign Reggie Jackson, making the choice to bring in DeAndre Jordan again, Denver's now hard capped and they couldn't do some things legally, like giving Jeff Green more money. So my question to you, my guy, what happened and why do you think this is the way that Denver went?
Well, Ryan, you gave a nice little preview and your nice little spreadsheet, because you're a spreadsheet merchant. Some fans and particular fan bases will call you
data merchant, spreadsheet merchant. I'm a graph guy, according to Matt Moore.
Yeah, there you go. Big graph guy over here. Big Embiid guy and big graph guy. So I think that you gave a nice little intro into this could be the most mid-off season possible. And mid meaning it's not as if you failed, but it's just mid. And it's not great, but it's not also good. It's just mid. And I think that's about what it was. I think, Reggie Jackson getting $10 million, $10.25 million over a 2-year period with a player option. And then watching, obviously, Jeff Green depart. Bruce Brown, $22.5 million per year for 2 seasons with the team option for the Pacers. I love that for Bruce. You win a championship, you play as high as a level as you did, you deserve that money. It's really that simple. And I said, I think on one of my shows beforehand, that I think him next to Halliburton and Benny, that's great. I think that'd be a great fit. And then it worked out. And so I'm really happy for him. But this is just kind of what comes with the territory. The Nuggets are paying Jamal Murray, max salary, rookie max extension, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, $15 million, Michael Porter Jr., rookie max extension, and then they're paying Aaron Gordon 4-year $92, and they're paying Nikola Jokic, somewhat overrated, obviously, a 5-year $276 million deal that starts next year. So that's just what comes with doing business, man. You got to get these kind of deals done. But the bench, man, everybody's watching the Lakers and the Suns fill out their rosters with Watanabe, and then they're watching, Eric Gordon get signed there, and Keita Bates Diop. Like, yo, where's Keita Bates Diop for Denver? All that kind of stuff. People are asking that question. Taurean Prince, 1 year, $4.5 million to the Lakers. Why couldn't the Nuggets offer that? And I think now you see they were prioritizing using their tax level exception on a backup ball handler and not an additional wing. So, it's going to be interesting for sure. But I think, this is just what comes with doing business. But I think that the Nuggets, personally, Ryan, I think they're going to be kind of a little bit of a swim mode until they maybe get to the trade deadline. But we'll see what they do before the season starts.
All right. Glass half full perspective here. And here's kind of why Denver did what they did. If you look around the point guard market, there aren't a lot of point guards that went for the same or less money than what Reggie Jackson did. I think the only guys that you could really point to are Patrick Beverley and Dennis Smith Jr. And with Patrick Beverley, he's bounced around to a lot of teams lately and hasn't really found a home. And I think there's a reason for that. I think that he would have been great on Denver from an actual playing perspective, but Denver wanted somebody who could run the second unit. And I think it's fair to say that Patrick Beverley wouldn't have done that well. And then Dennis Smith Jr., he hasn't really played an important game in his career yet. And that's still something that you are trying to figure out when you're saying, okay, is the grass always greener with these other guys? Maybe it is. But it also might not be. And a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., I think the defense would have been great. That's somebody that I think would have been a fun player for Nuggets fans to watch. But clearly the Nuggets made their internal evaluations and said that they preferred Reggie Jackson. And I can't fault them for that until I see it bear out. I want to let it play out to see what actually happens with a guy like Reggie. I don't want to immediately bemoan the move. I talked about it. I wrote about it in various, like, hey, here's what they could have done. Here's what I thought that they may have maybe should have done. But even like a guy like Josh Richardson, who I wrote about, like, it would have been nice to get a guy like Josh Richardson for the minimum. But he may not have wanted to come to Denver for the minimum and instead decided I would rather go to Miami where there's no state tax and I was drafted there. And that would have been a great fit for a guy like Josh Richardson. There's a lot of questions that I think Eric Gordon maybe would have been great in Denver. Maybe didn't want to come. Maybe even for the money that Denver would have offered. Maybe they had those discussions already and said, we're not going to do that. Also, maybe Denver promised Reggie Jackson when they bought him out. Maybe they said, we're going to give you our taxpayer MLE back when the buyout happened. And that was always going to be the case. I don't know. I don't know whether that was a thing that happened, but I do think that if you're a Nuggets fan and you want to consider like this organization being at its upstanding, if they did in fact make a promise for a guy like Reggie Jackson beforehand to get him here and then went back on that promise, that automatically provides lesser faith. So I can see that being one of the reasons why they went this direction.
So hindsight being 2020, I want to ask you kind of a random question. So would you rather the Nuggets last year, they took Peyton Watson at 30. So you have the potential of Peyton Watson, but then they also had Andrew Nembhard was on the board at the time. Would you rather the Nuggets have drafted Andrew Nembhard, or would you rather have Andrew Nembhard in this situation as your sixth man, your point guard off the bench, as opposed to what you think you might be able to get from Peyton this year?
That's a good question. Like, here's something that I think Nuggets fans need to appreciate. Peyton Watson's played 180 minutes, like exactly. 180, and 130 of those minutes came in the final 6 games of the regular season when nothing mattered at all. So I know everybody has a lot of faith in Peyton, and they should have a lot of faith in Peyton based off of what he showed, based off of the vision. And Calvin Booth has not led people astray just yet. The move that he made for Christian Brown, the moves that he made for Bruce Brown and KCP, like, you can say these are all great moves, and to wait and see what happens with Peyton. It would kind of be nice to have a guy like Andrew Nembhard on this roster right now, somebody that you can just pencil into the role that Bruce Brown had. Like that seems like a really, really great thing that Denver could have had at that point. So hindsight being 2020, I'm going to take the better player. I think that Andrew Nembhard's going to be the better player next year. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, Brian, I think right now one of my secondary takeaways was he is Calvin, meaning Calvin and Malone. They're very comfortable with Christian Brown and Peyton Watson. Because that had to be the takeaway. Like, I don't know how you walk away from that without looking at saying, well, your backup small forward is Peyton Watson, Julian Strother, and maybe if they want to put Vlaco there. But right now, it's going to be one of those two players. So if that's the case, then it seems like the coaching staff, it seems like the GM, the owners, everybody has looked at Peyton Watson. They've said, we saw enough at the end of the season. We saw enough from him with the Grand Rapids Gold. We've seen enough from him maybe so far this offseason. We are very comfortable with the possibility that Peyton Watson is going to be the direct backup to our historically most injury-prone player in Michael Porter Jr. And if he has to play heavy minutes, we're comfortable doing that.
That is it's an interesting take. And in my opinion, it's the wrong one. Because if you're a championship contender who wants to be great and wants to have the stability of taking advantage of Nikola Jokic's prime as much as humanly possible, then you better be right. Like that is a major commitment to make if you are the Nuggets front office. And I just hope that they're in lockstep. I hope that the Nuggets firmly believe this. I hope that they can continue to go down that route. But it does just seem like Denver's one veteran short on that perimeter. And they probably aren't going to add anybody because they want to let those guys develop. But if those guys develop and they don't develop right, then that's going to be a really, really dangerous place. So that's I think a very important question. It's a very important question for Nuggets fans. And I think it's a fair one. I think it's a completely fair one. So this summer league with Peyton Watson, I'm actually kind of interested to watch him now. Like, are you the best player in summer league, or are you getting close to being the best player in summer league? That would be something that I'm actually curious about. So, no questions about DeAndre Jordan coming back. Like, he's a perfectly reasonable 14th or 15th man. I don't think that he should play over Zeke Naji. Jeff Green leaving, I do think that Vlaco and Zeke and Peyton, I think that they're okay to replace Jeff. It's replacing Bruce that is obviously the bigger issue there.
What do you think about – so my only concern that I had with that really, Ryan, was Zeke Naji and Vlaco have both had injury concerns over the course of their career so far, right? So – and they lost Jack White. Jack White, who might not have been, a full active player with them with the OKC. How comfortable are you then that their eighth man in the playoffs and finals last year was lost now, and basically you're bumping up Peyton. So now you have Christian Brown, maybe Peyton Watson as your eighth man, and Reggie Jackson as your seventh man off the bench, and then maybe Zeke or Vlaco. How do you feel about that in the front court?
I don't feel great. It's not my perfect thing, but what I will say is that when those guys did play last year, independent of the health concerns, like when they just were on the floor, I found some crazy numbers. I just bear with me for a second on this stat. With Jamal Murray on and Zeke Naji on, and then all three of Bones, DeAndre, and Nikola Jokic off. So what I'm trying to isolate there is the brief amount of minutes where Murray was the backup ball handler and Zeke was the backup center. Denver was a +5, like in those minutes. Actually, it might have been without Bones, it was like +10. They were actually really good in those particular minutes. Now they included Bruce Brown in a lot of ways. And so Denver's going to have to replace that aspect of it. But I do think that there's at least some logic to trusting Zeke. And he was way better at backup 5 than a lot of people give him credit for. It was the reality of trying to play with Bones, trying to work in Reggie. When you just took out those variables and you put your second best player on the second unit, like most teams do, it actually was pretty good. So I think that they're going to be okay with Zeke at the 5 as long as he can handle it physically. If he can't handle it physically, and if that's part of the equation, then you're working in a lot of potential issues there.
Well, I think Zeke's incredible as a mobile 5. And I think the best examples of Zeke at the 5 were the Clippers game. Remember, he got dunked on twice in that game, but he actually played fairly well. And then the Pacers game. Remember, they were running roughshod all over the Pacers. Obviously, Bruce Brown's not going to be there for some of those meteoric dunks that he was putting together. But I think, again, for me, it's Bruce's athleticism and his rim pressure that I think are the things most missed. But I think on the other side of this, too, I think there's some players that could have replaced that. But again, what I've seen from Peyton so far, Peyton has the tools. It's just, will he be able to get up to speed to be able to play high minutes on a championship level team? We'll just have to see. And, they're going to give him an opportunity to find out.
Really quickly, Denver's got 2 to 3 open roster spots depending on what they do with Jalen Pickett. Pretty sure that Hunter Tyson's going to be a 2-way. Jalen Pickett might be a 2-way as well, and he might fill that third 2-way spot, but I kind of doubt it. I think he'll probably be on the full time. So if he is, then Denver's got 7 roster spots and about just under $8 million to play around with. But the only other things that they can really do with that $8 million of space is they've got this traded player exception that's worth $9 million. So they could trade for a player that's worth up to $9 million, but they can't go over the $8 million threshold on that super tax apron. That's the cap logistics that people probably don't want to hear too much about on this pod, but Denver can't really trade for anybody that's over $8 million now based off of that salary cap, the super tax. They could also sign minimum contracts, but those are the only 2 ways that they can add players. So you're going to need to find a trade partner and you're going to need to sign minimum contracts. Denver also might leave one of those roster spots open to save some money. And that, I think, is actually a very likely thing for them to do. So my guess is on the likelihood of them doing the next thing is they'll sign one more minimum contract and then leave the final roster spot open. So it's going to be a pretty underwhelming thing for Nuggets fans to have to think about. Like I don't think that there's much more that they can do unless a trade materializes that they probably weren't seeing beforehand.
Yeah, I think Jalen's going to get that roster spot because they need a third point guard because you know how Malone values those minutes. Do you foresee a future where Jalen by December, January is able to get those minutes over Reggie Jackson?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if Reggie's bad and Jalen is at least a good defender in that place and is creating just as many positive opportunities, and maybe he can switch a little bit more, which on a bench lineup that's projected to have Christian, Peyton, Vlatko, and Zeke, you're going to want to switch everything. Like that just makes sense. So I think that Denver could do that with Jalen, maybe a little bit more than they could with Reggie. But the offense is going to be a struggle.
Let me see, because I'm looking up a certain player. I have a certain player in mind, Ryan, that I think would fit what we're looking at, but he is currently making a good bit of money, so never mind. Do you think there's any – do you think the Heat are going to hold on to Kyle Lowry if they get Dame Lillard, or would they waive him?
I don't like. So now I think that deadline has passed where they could have waived him on that non-guaranteed contract, which I think is what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
I don't think that they can anymore, and because he's making, I think it's $29 million or something around there.
$29 million.
Yeah, Denver can't afford to take that in.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's not great. That's for sure. So I do not think that they can really do anything major with that. But I mean, if they had waived him, he would have been a great ad. I would have taken Kyle Lowry over Reggie Jackson, and I think a lot of people would have agreed.
No, I mean, I think the Raptors would have given that Dennis Schroeder money to Kyle Lowry if they could have.
Yeah, that's honestly probably true. So, look, I mean, there's not a lot of options left.
When Dennis Schroeder got $13 million a year, Ryan, I said, yeah, this is wild. We're
the Raptors.
The NBA's all over the place.
The Raptors they just want to maintain that play-in spot that they had.
Do you think that Jakob Poeltl, is that the worst deal in free agency so far?
No, like Jakob Poeltl's fine. Like he's a good starting quality center, and that's just what the market is for guys like that. The problem is that they don't have a roster that's built around Jakob Poeltl. Like they've got 6'9" guys and Jakob Poeltl, and that just doesn't make much sense.
Well, the rumor is they might be trying to start Scotty at the point, and I'm just like, Scotty, OG, Pascal, Jakob, and OG.
OG, yeah. Okay, if that's what they want. Like that's, I mean, they're not going to be very good. Like they'll be a good defense, but it's
Right.
also not about it's not just about size on the defensive end. You have to be like as connected as possible, and I don't see a group like that playing very well together, and their offense is going to be bottom 5.
Yeah, that's rough, man. I just so who was a player that you were targeting in your brain that you thought the Nuggets could be able to get, and then what did they end up getting?
Well, based off of the actual money, like
Right.
Oh, you mean with trades?
Well, trade or within reason that you had in your brain.
I thought that Yuta, who went to Phoenix, would have been interesting. I think Cole Anthony makes some sense. Like he's a guy that like in that 2020 draft class along with Zeke. I think that like just doing Zeke in a second for Cole Anthony makes a lot of sense for both teams. But then if you're Denver, you've got to make sure to sign a minimum center that can also do some of that stuff. But that it just doesn't make much sense to me now, because now you have Reggie and you've got Cole Anthony and Jamal Murray and Jalen Pickett and Colin Gillespie, and you're just too small. So I think that kind of takes it off the board. You probably want somebody who's a little bit bigger. Like they could still get DeLon Wright, but now they have to send out salary in order to do that. So that's a tougher one now. So I don't know. I don't know what they're ultimately going to do. Like DeLon Wright and for Zeke Naji in a second round pick makes some sense still, but the options are limited. And I Chris Dunn still makes some sense because he's at the tail end of the Utah Jazz roster, but I am not super happy about and super like up on where they're going right now.
The Nuggets?
Yeah, just because like they do not have an avenue if Christian Brown and Peyton Watson don't like become 6th and 7th man.
Well, let's play. Let me be Mr. Positive, all right? Because Ryan's down in the dumps right now, everybody. So what's the upside? What is the best outcome for the Nuggets bench and for Peyton and for Christian?
I think the best avenue is Christian developing a little bit of off the dribble skills, a little bit of creation, Peyton Watson doing a little bit of the same thing, and then those guys kind of piecing together what Bruce Brown did from a playmaking perspective. Like, because Peyton was the idea of him as a point forward. That's what people want to see with him, and maybe he can do some of that. Maybe. Well,
again, this is highest optimal. So no, maybe this is the highest possible outcome.
Then they do that, and Reggie shoots the ball really well. He's a little bit more efficient than what he was, obviously. Vlatko gets back to shooting well. Zeke gets back to shooting well. And if you're like, it would be nice to have Zeke Naji shooting well, that's for sure. But between those 5 guys, you get enough positive shooting and enough switchable defense that it's actually a better bench rotation than it was last year. That's the positive view. Do I think that's all going to happen and line up? Probably not.
What's the Ryan's? The ship is sinking. It's falling. We can't rescue it. What's the worst possible outcome?
The worst outcome is that Reggie is clearly the bones fits where it's not good, and you could see it from the beginning, and that's like the piece that everybody's like staring at, like you have to be better. They immediately go to Jalen Pickett or Colin Gillespie, and neither of those guys can really fill that void either. They have to trade for some other piece that they can get during the middle of the season. But then that means that they can't bolster the rest of their roster where it needs it. And they're suddenly left with a pretty flawed, an extremely flawed bench. And their starting 5 is all playing 40 minutes a night.
Yeah, I'm not that down for sure. I'm not also, but I will say this: Peyton Watson showed he does have the ability to do some creation, mostly in transition. So we'll see how they continue to elevate that. And again, if Peyton can come in and be, I'll say this: Peyton has I think a tier and a half higher defensive ceiling than Bruce Brown does. Can we agree on that?
Than Bruce Brown is.
I think he can be like an all NBA level defender.
Yeah, I guess I could see Bruce being. He wasn't that though. So yeah, okay. I see his ceiling being higher. I think we're getting into degrees there in terms of like what their actual impact is. But given what Peyton can do from a stocks perspective, I think I agree. I think I agree with
So
that.
maybe if he taps into that, I think that's what's needed. If he can lean into that and he becomes like a defensive ace like he was the end of the year, but that's like who he is. Like you
Yeah,
put him on the court, basically the Nuggets have like a one-on-one regular season defensive rating type deal.
that'd
You
be
know what I
great.
mean?
That'd be
I
great.
think that makes up for it. Yeah.
In those final 6 games, he averaged 1.7 blocks in like 22 minutes a night. But he also shot 25% from three and 60% from the free throw line. So
Right.
there are levels, and he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to be young. But like, this is a bet on him. This is a bet on him. And if you are a positive Nuggets fan that wants to bet on the internal development of the team and what they've done with Jokic, Murray, MPJ, guys like that, Christian Brown especially, then sure. Like I don't see any reason why he can't reach a higher level. The question is whether he can do it consistently for a championship contender. And I think that's a clear up for debate.
Right. Yeah, we're going to find out for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a break then. When we come back, we are going to discuss Dame Lillard, James Harden, and some of the biggest winners and losers in free agency. And then we're going to rank contenders after that. But first, everybody, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by Superbook Sports, the most trusted name in sports gambling with a direct line to Vegas. And now when you use promo code MILEHIGH, you will score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, Superbook's going to match you with promo code MILEHIGH. Make sure to download that app. Use the promo code. They can get you $250 as long as you are connected. Download the Superbook Sports app. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. We'll be right back on Weekends with Swipa. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for the love and support on the pod. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channels that you're watching on, whether it's the Mile High Sports channel or if it's the Swipa Cam YouTube channel. These are awesome. We love to do them as consistently as we can. I just got a Twitter notification, and it's just a story about Miles Bridges. Okay, no worries. Let's get into the rest of the show, my guy. Let's talk about Dame Lillard. I'm not surprised that this went the direction that it went. I think that it is like from a team perspective, and that's how I kind of think about these things. Him waiting to make this official trade request until after Jeremy Grant signed a 5-year, $160 million contract is pretty funny. Because if you're the Blazers, you're like, well, why do we do that? Why do we do that now? But I think if you're Dame, you're trying to take care of your guy, you're taking care of your teammate, and that's perfectly reasonable. I understand that. But it is going to put the Blazers into a really tough position. They are probably going to be horrible. Where do you think Dame goes, and what do you think of Dame's request?
Yeah, about time. About time, Dame. Probably 2 years too late for me. Miami Heat would be ideal. I think him, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo with Caleb Martin and whatever they do with the 4, Haywood, Highsmith. Matter of fact, if I'm creating a lineup, Damian Lillard, Caleb Martin, Jimmy Butler, Haywood, Highsmith, and Bam Adebayo would be asinine. Would be an asinine 5 to close with. I think that's a really good move for him. I think Damian Lillard was the 3rd best offensive player in the NBA last year for me. He averaged 32 points a game on 65% true shooting and averaged 8 assists a game as well. He was bonkers the entire series. He played 58 games last year, and they shut him down. So I think he'll be excellent. If he goes to them, I think they'll be a finals contender easily. I think if he goes to Philly, you'll have 2 disappointing playoff performers on the same team with a chance to redeem themselves, and Embiid and with Dame. So I think that actually would be a good fit. They would have to get rid of Tyrese Maxey, obviously. And then the other fit, I think the only other one that's optional is the Nets. So Damian Lillard, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, Nick Claxton.
I love that. I think that's
nice
the best possible fit. I know everybody wants to see him in Miami, and I think he wants to see him in Miami, if we're being honest. But I love the idea of that Brooklyn fit because it is the exact kind of roster that you want to surround Damian Lillard with as your best player. I think in Miami, in a place like that where you're kind of it's the back and forth between him and Jimmy. Bam is going to need his touches as well. It's not like Bam is a great defensive center, as is Nick Claxton, but I kind of love the idea of a couple of high level role players around Dame and still letting him kind of be that best player and see what he can do in a place like Brooklyn. But I mean, we're like, either of those options is great for him in terms of trying to pursue
What would
a
they
championship.
trade for him, do you think?
If it's Brooklyn,
yeah, like they want to keep Mikal and Cam. So
yeah, it would be Dinwiddie. It would be some matching salary along with Dinwiddie, like Royce O'Neal or somebody like that. You have to get a couple of their young draft picks, and then you've got to send out.
What's his name off the bench? Cam
Thomas.
Yeah, Cam Thomas.
It would be. I actually don't think that Portland would want a guy like Cam Thomas because I think it just kind of takes away from Scoot, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, players like that. Yeah, he'd be a good sixth man for them to like fill it up. But I just don't think Cam Thomas is not the right guy to commit to your development if you want to like go really high. If you want to become a title contender, in my mind. But I mean, who knows? Like maybe they would want him like that. But then it would be like 3 first-round picks, as many swaps as you give up, and then try to outbid a team like Miami. But Miami can't throw that much out there if they're like they don't have a lot of interesting pieces. The only thing is Hero, and I'm not sure if I want to commit to Hero.
I think Hero's going somewhere else. It'd be a 3-team deal with Hero.
Yeah, and that's like this is why I want to connect this with the James Harden stuff because I think that the right move for both of those teams is to send Damian Lillard to the Sixers, James Harden to the Clippers, and then stuff to Portland, like just to try to make that work. But if I'm Portland, I'm like, what stuff do the Clippers and the Sixers have that I really like? Maybe it's Tyrese Maxey.
Well, yeah, at that point, if Dame's there, you don't want Tyrese Maxey and Damian Lillard. So yeah, I think Tyrese Maxey with Scoot, Shaedon, and Anthony Simons. I think that's the only problem. I don't want to touch anything other than those 3. I don't want anything disrupting Scoot's development, Anthony Simon, and I think Shaedon Sharpe could be a monster. So
incredible athlete, and like just the exact kind of wing that you want. I think.
You think he's 6'6". Would you rather? You think he can develop into a 3?
I think he's a wing, and like that to me is 2-3. And I've always thought of this as like you've got your guards that are 1-2, your wings are 2-3, your forwards are 3-4, and your bigs are 4-5. That's sort of how I try to lay it out. But so I think he could do both, and I think in the NBA you've got to be able to do both. So if he can't, then that's actually like a pretty negative thing for him. But I think he could probably make it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Dame ends up going to the Heat. I think the Nets would be a sweet place for him. Now, Mikal Bridges, I think, would be an all-star level player next to Dame. I think he can give you 23 points a game, good efficiency, really good defense. Cameron Johnson, what?
No, I mean, it's a really nice, like, that to me is a really fun situation where you could see a guy like Dame trying to set up Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges as much as possible, and then taking over when he has to in the fourth quarters and just going off for 35 or 40 when he needs to. Like I love the idea of that. And I love the idea of him in the East, like being the actual best point guard in the East.
And then look, that vertical spacer and the defensive flexibility Nick Claxton would offer behind Damian Lillard.
Agreed.
Yeah. They could be a positive defending team as well. So yeah, I think that's a great option. I just don't think it happens.
Yeah. It's probably going to be Miami. And if that's the case, then they'll be great. They'll be really good. Do I think it changes them tangibly from the team that Denver just faced? Not really. Like it makes them a better offense, but I'm not like, no, it actually, never mind. It does change things tangibly. Like trying to score like with Dame in pick and roll.
They be the East favorites. Do you think they'd be the favorites in the East?
Definitely. Yeah. Like I would have them as a favorite. It's like this Milwaukee, I think is in Boston. Like to me, both of those teams are kind of stale in a lot of different ways. And like, I think Dame would immediately walk into being a top 5 player, like and has the potential to be a top 5 player in the entire league if you're in that system. Like there's something there.
Right. Whew. Yeah, we'll see.
That'd be cool. What about James? What about James Harden? Dude, where do you think he goes?
He's going to the Clippers.
Yeah, that's just going to happen.
Yeah, he's going to the Clippers, and they're going to have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Probably if they have to keep one of them, they're going to keep the worst version. So they'll probably keep Rocco, and then I think he'd beat Zubac. And I think that actually would be one of James Harden's best teams he's ever played with.
Oh yeah, I'd love that fit for them. Like I think that it actually makes more sense than a lot of people are saying. That is one of the few big 3 combinations between Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, where I think you can actually legitimately say it works.
Mm-hmm.
Harden's going to set the table for those guys. He'll take a lot of burden off of those guys, and then you can always stagger. And you get to a setup where during the important games of the regular season, where 2 of those guys are on the floor at the same time at all times, like that to me is great. Like that's what you want from a big 3 like that. And I think that Harden makes a lot of sense in that regard. Do the Clippers then become like? Actually, no. We'll do that after. Like, actually, no. We'll answer it now. Do the Clippers become on the same level of the Nuggets and the Suns if that happens?
Nuggets and Suns. Interesting. You put them all in the same tier together. I think the Clippers absolutely are the same tier as the Suns, no doubt. I think Kawhi Leonard's the best player between all of the players on both of those teams, and if he's healthy with James and with Paul George, that's nonsense.
Big if right there.
I mean, I don't know, bro. Kawhi Leonard, that's a lot. Think about James Harden's playmaking next to their shot making, like, and then even him getting to the rim at times in a regular season setting. Yeah, and then if they go small, I mean, they're going to put Rocco out there with like. I mean, technically, you could put Kawhi at the 4 if they keep Terrence Mann, which is I doubt. But if they kept Terrence Mann, they could have Harden, Mann, George, Kawhi with Rocco. That's a sick lineup, bro.
Oh, it is. There's no doubt that it is. I love the idea of it in general. Like it's. I don't trust each of them individually, but
right.
I just assume that together they'll make it work. That's kind of where I'm at with that. But it's an interesting one for sure. Right now, what's the biggest winner in free agency for you? Which teams?
Oh my gosh, there's so many super teams. The Clippers are going to have a super team. The Lakers have a super team now. The Suns have a super team now. Beal, Booker, Durant, and then Harden, Kawhi, Paul George, and then the Lakers. Man, they loaded up. Man, they got Torian Prince. They got what's the name? Jackson Hayes for nothing. Then they get Austin Reeves back for 4 years, $56 million. Rui.
That is a good that Austin Reeves deal is really good. I know you're kind of talking out.
No, I'm not. I'm not. This is good.
It is kind of funny though. It's like, man, Jackson Hayes. Woo! Oh yeah, here we go.
No, Jackson's a good player.
He's
a good vertical spacer.
Oh yeah, good for him.
But I think he can play next to AD in certain lineups. Now, again, you got to remember. Remember when they were playing C.J. McCollum, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Jackson Hayes, and Jonas Valanciunas? They were murdering people. They were killing people. So
that was also the game. If I recall, that was also the game that Jokic had like 46 and then 30 in the fourth quarter in OT.
Was that game?
I think so.
Okay, it could have been. But I'm saying like they were still good, and they had a top 10 net rating over the course of that stretch when they were playing that lineup. And Jackson Hayes with AD playing versus Joker or playing versus another big, that gives you some versatility options there. 2 great rim protectors, I guess conceptually. Rui got 3 years, 51, and then they get Gabe Vincent for 3 years, 33.
Yeah.
Hey,
no, I think they got better. I do think they got better. I think there's no doubt about it. It's just it's funny that you led with Jackson Hayes as opposed to Gabe Vincent.
Well, I forgot they made to sign so many people. I had to go through the list.
They did, and don't forget Cam Reddish, man. Like
Cam Reddish, yep, Cam Reddish. The players once said that he would have a brighter career than Zion and RJ Barrett. By the way,
I mean that trio has not had a great start to their career so far.
Unfortunately,
that's for sure. It's unfortunate, but no, I think you're right. I think if do you consider the Houston Rockets a winner?
I love what they did. They spent money they had to spend. But they're starting. Think about their top 10. It's going to be Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, I think Dylan Brooks, Jabari, and then it's going to be Alperen Şengün with Kevin Porter Jr., Amen Thompson, Torrey Eason with who's going to be their backup for. They signed somebody else. I think they might get rid of him.
I mean, if they do, then that would be a good one for Denver to pick up, just like some depth there.
Jock Landale to 5 as well.
They've got Jeff Green now.
Oh, yeah, Jeff Green.
Yeah, that's a good one to have.
Wait, hold on. We're missing one of their young players, though. No. That's where I messed up. It's Cam Whitmore at the 3 and then Torrey Eason at the 4.
I mean, maybe Cam doesn't play. Like that wouldn't surprise me, actually, if he
doesn't play.
Dude, I mean, yeah. I mean, he's also, if he had some injury concerns, then you might want to get healthy and get right. Like that, it wouldn't surprise me if they're
like, yeah, I'm assuming he's healthy is what I'm saying.
Yeah. If he is healthy, then like that's an interesting one to have. But like, I also can see them deciding, yeah, or somebody like Udoka saying, we need Jeff Green to play so that he could be like, so give them some actual.
Jeff Green's going to play over Torrey Eason?
No, I mean, they play Tari and Jeff together. And then we got.
I think Cam Whitmore would be out the rotation.
It wouldn't surprise. Maybe he plays the 2, and then they have Amen Thompson out there, and then they just bench Kevin Porter, which
what
also would be okay with me.
No way! You don't like Kevin Porter Jr.?
Is that a serious question?
Like, I like Kevin Porter. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's really good with the hezzy step back Jimbos. Yeah, that's great. Cool, man. Like, can you like run a team and run some defense? Like that would be nice. Like
Kevin Porter Jr. would be the 4th best Nugget, by the way. I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Wow, man! I just okay. I'm low on the Nuggets right now, and I'm not that low. That's wild, man. Although I will say Kevin Porter Jr. might not be a bad like. I'd take him as the backup point guard in Denver, probably over Reggie.
He would be man. First off, let me get a run real quick. When he got waived by the Cleveland Cavaliers, I lost my sauce. Nuggets, you would rather have Facu Campazzo over Kevin Porter Jr. And he went to the Houston Rockets and immediately validated why he was signed. Got a $20 million a year deal. He's a good player. He just was with Steven Silas and Jalen Green. And we all saw that Jalen Green's not as focused as you want him to be at times. So, hey, you know what? Send him to the Denver system. I think he'd be good.
Just as a reminder, he also pulled a Bones Highland and decided he didn't want to go into the game. Back.
He was young, you know.
Still is, my guy.
If you could rob any team in the Western Conference of one of their young players that's not like a marquee young player, who would it be?
Oh, see, now I gotta think of. Okay, give me an example so I can think.
Like a role, like a Terrence Mann or a Trey Jones, a little bit, maybe even like a Kendrick Williams, but a little bit less than a Kendrick Williams. Everybody knows about Kendrick.
Yeah, no, I was the first name that came to mind was Kendrick Williams from OKC.
Right.
What about Josh Green from Dallas? Like,
that's not a no player. They're not letting him go. He's the only two-way wing they have.
Give me Kenny Lofton Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies.
Really? Yeah.
No, probably not. I'd say if I had to pick other than them, like, man, this is just. Is there somebody on the Pelicans bench that I could dig out that like?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's a little too high, but Trey Murphy. I don't know. Najee Marshall.
Say it again.
Marshall.
Najee Marshall would be good for this team. Like,
right.
He'd be like just literally putting him onto the roster. I think gives me a little bit more confidence because you can always go to somebody like that and say, this is how a professional basketball needs to play, Peyton. This is how a professional basketball player needs to play in these situations.
Right.
And I think that's super helpful for a lot of teams. So
right.
He'd be good.
Dyson Daniels.
Dyson Daniels would be great. Like he's right. Like the new Lonzo Ball, who hopefully doesn't have as many injury issues. That would be cool.
Right.
What about losers? Just we'll talk about those guys quick. Are the Nuggets one of the biggest losers?
Nuggets? Yeah, of course. They lost Bruce Brown and Jeff Green.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Sixth and eighth man with a championship run. the 76ers look terrible. They let Jalen McDaniels go.
Yeah.
They traded Matisse Thybulle.
Oh, by the way, Jalen McDaniels going to the Toronto Raptors is the most like perfect, like it's just like perfect for everybody involved. Like,
Right.
That's your Vision 6'9". He's the perfect candidate right there.
How much money did he get?
It was just like I think it was biannual exception. So like 2 years, $9 million.
$9 million is what he got?
Like for 2 years. So like 4.5 ish.
Man.
I think.
Let me see. Biggest losers. Let me see. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm one of the biggest losers. Okay.
I believe that.
Because Nickeil Alexander-Walker got $9 million over 2 years. And I was so beyond frustrated. I literally like shook within my body when that happened. So I'm gonna have to go to the Nuggets. I'm gonna say the 76ers below that.
Yeah.
Other biggest losers. Who spent? I think the Raptors are losers.
Yeah, of course.
They got Fred VanVleet. They have no point guard. Dennis Schroeder and Scotty Barnes are your 2 point guards. Nah. Yeah, I think those are my losers probably.
I think that's probably fair. That's if Miami doesn't get Dame, then they're a loser for me because they let Max Strus go. They let Gabe Vincent go. They've let all these other guys on the fringes go, and they don't really have a way to replace them. So like that would be one for me. Who else? Who else makes sense? Clippers, if they let Eric Gordon go, if they do not, they did get KJ Martin from the Rockets, so that's one that I gotta laud them for that. That's a good athletic young guy for them to add to their mix. Milwaukee had to pay Brook Lopez a bunch of money, and because Houston kind of leveraged them, that's one where I'm watching Milwaukee. That one I think has a strong way to maybe blow up in their face a little bit.
There's always a lot of smoke around Giannis being traded. Is that coming out of his camp too in the last 5 years?
I doubt it. I doubt that it comes out of their camp. I think it's more just people like us being like, oh, they look a little weird. Like that, he should probably go. But it's kind of true. Like they haven't been great.
Oh, by the way, the Chicago Bulls, Ayo Dosunmu and Alex Caruso with Javon Carter. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we have too many point guards.
I would love that. And they also re-signed Kobe White. So, like, they have another guard. They let Patrick Beverly go, which was not surprising. I thought that he would be a target for Denver for that reason. But it would be interesting to see.
What could the Nuggets give them, and what could they give the Nuggets?
Well, so Ayo Dosunmu, they can't give anybody anything other than a minimum. But, like, I think that if they wanted to, they could trade for Alex Caruso with that TPE, but they have to do it before July 6th.
You think with the swaps too?
Yeah, you got to get second round picks. You got to get like first round swaps like that, like as much as they could possibly want. Maybe you send out Zeke Naji too, and that'd be something.
How would you feel if the Nuggets made a move for Alex Caruso with the TPE? Let's say 2 seconds and one swap.
That'd be great. I'd give up what you need to go get a guy like that who would absolutely be in the closing rotation in some ways. Like, he'd be so good.
Let me just picture this in my mind. Okay, just give me a second. Alex Caruso, the original, with the great hair version of Alex Caruso, next to Peyton Watson, next to Nikola Jokic. Okay, I got it in my brain. Let's
defense would be nuts, bro.
Nuts!
Just absolutely crazy.
They would be unbelievable. Caruso's a better defender than Bruce Brown was.
Yeah.
Like, now that's a player that's like, I think there's a significant gap between him and Bruce, and that's one of the only players. But that's because Caruso legitimately is one of the best on-ball defenders of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
They had a top 2 defense with him and Lonzo on the court, and him and what's the name, Patrick Beverly on the court together.
Yeah, it'd be dope
with Nikola Vucevic behind them.
Jokic is a better defender than Vooch. Like there's no doubt about it. Like they can now. Jokic trying in this regular season is not going to be a better defender than Vooch. No. When you get to the playoffs, like you can absolutely see Caruso.
Wait, I've been thinking about this. What do you think you're going to get from Joker this regular season?
You're probably getting around the same numbers statistically, but like less effort on the defensive end would be my guess. So you're getting like 24 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. I don't think you get up to 10. And Murray takes on a little bit more of a playmaking load. Porter takes on a little bit more of a playmaking load.
That's the question, sir.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray, I said this on Twitter, eligible for a 3-year, 144 extension. He saw that guy, Fred VanVleet, get a 3-year, 133 extension.
Yeah.
Do you think Jamal Murray signs that, or do you bet on himself to make third-team All-NBA next year?
I think that he's going to sign it, but like I mean, I could see it both ways. Like it's a tough call for him because I think that you want, like in my mind, you would want him to, like you would want him to lock in and be like, hey, you're going to be with us for a long time. We're taking care of you, even like with the injuries. Like screw that. We're gonna take care of you. You're our guy. But him betting on himself, if he does get hurt, like Denver's then put into a really tough position. So it's also like $50 million a year for a guy that's never made an all-star team. So like, that's a really good deal if you're Jamal, like I think, but I don't know. We're going to find out.
$48 million for him. I got to watch Jaylen Brown get $290.
Yeah. Hey man, that's that Boston media market for you.
Oh, he was second team All-NBA last year.
I know.
But I think he deserved All-NBA last year. I'm just saying, like, I think Jamal's clearly shown he's better, especially in the playoffs.
I do agree. Like there's no doubt, but also like the All-Star appearances are built on regular season production, and he just hasn't had a ton of that. And I know that. So like
I have a question. Yeah, what do you think Jamal Murray will be next year? Fully healthy, let's say he plays 70 games next year, because that's about what he played 74 anyway, 72 when he was normal. So like, what do you think Jamal Murray does? Coming off a championship, averaging 27, 6 and 5 over the course of the entire playoff run.
I think that he probably averages like 23 and 7 or 24 and 6 or something like that. In the regular season, it's really tough for individuals to really stand out in Denver's offense because everything's going to run through Nikola Jokic for the most part. But I think that one of the things that Murray's going to do is when they do end up staggering, because this bench is not going to work. When they do end up staggering and Murray goes to the bench and he goes to the second unit to lead that group, he's going to be better as a playmaker, as a scorer with that group, and he's going to get up a lot of shots and a lot of plays. So I think that 23 and 7, 24 and 6, something around there, and he makes his first All-Star team. I think that that's a very fair like expectation for him. And if he falls short of that, then that's a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be around 23 and 7. I think him and Joker are going to be in like regular season. We're going to get you to where we want to get you by the end of the game, and we're going to wash you by the end of the game mode. I think that's how they're going to play. Like, all right, mid. All right, a little pressure here. And then the fourth quarter, clamps. That way they can spend like 70% of the energy all year. And if they get up, I think they'll win about 56 games next year. But I think it's all going to come down to how far ahead they are or how much they need to catch to get to the 1 seed.
Should we re-rank championship contenders or save it for another podcast and then everybody be like, but you use the title, are the Denver Nuggets still favorites in the Western Conference?
Well, is that the title of the episode?
That's the current title, yeah.
All right, yeah, let's recommend it.
We should probably do it. Okay, so I think we're going to focus on the West. I'd rather avoid focusing on the East just because like you got to get through the Western teams, and that's where if you're a Nuggets fan, that's where you're at. Last year, the Western Conference standings were Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, LA Clippers, Golden State Warriors, Lakers, Timberwolves. That's the top 8. Other teams that could potentially break into that: OKC, New Orleans, Dallas, probably not Utah unless they decide to trade for Dame. And then maybe Houston if they like just push really high. I sort of doubt that they will, but who knows? In that top 8, is there any reason to believe that the Nuggets are not the best contender in the West?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 super teams in the Western Conference. You got the Suns, you got the Clippers. I think Harden's going to be there. I think the Lakers, they have one of the most well-rounded rosters in the NBA, plus LeBron James and Anthony Davis. There's going to be people picking them to come out, now with this revamped roster they have. And now they got, Darvin Ham, second year. Frank Vogel's with the Suns now. Obviously, the Clippers got Ty Lue, So, yeah, I mean, for sure. I think that I would say if I had to rank them, I'm saying everybody fully healthy. I'm going to say Nuggets. I'm going to say the Clippers with James Harden. I'm going to say the Suns and the Lakers, I think, would be my top 4. Then I would have maybe the Warriors, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Kings. Probably the Kings and the Grizzlies. So that's 6 and 7. And then 8, healthy.
Minnesota. They added some pieces.
Pelicans.
Healthy, it probably should be the Pelicans because that just infers that Zion's actually going to play.
Right.
I think it's fair. I think it's a fair list. I wouldn't argue with it that much. I think the Clippers, if they were to make that trade, I think people are underselling how important a nice playmaker, point guard type, ball handler, decision maker, how important that would be for them just from a regular season perspective. Just it would absolutely change them. Playoffs and when it comes down to matchups and things like that, it would be really fascinating to see what the Clippers' big 3, and because if that's what it ends up being, if it were them going against the Lakers or them going against the Suns, how those matchups would break down.
That must-see TV.
Yeah, it's really fun to think about.
I think they could beat. I think they would beat the Suns because I think they're better at what they do than the Suns are what they do.
Yeah,
and I think the Lakers. I actually think the Clippers legitimately could beat everybody from the Lakers to both the Lakers and the Suns if they need to, if they were healthy.
Yeah, and then other teams like the Kings and the Grizzlies just not really in that same tier at that point.
Right.
Who else would can we even count? What about the Warriors? What are you down on the Warriors?
They don't. It's not great, Bob. They had their closing lineup. I put this together. Everybody laughed at me. They called it the Life Alert lineup. It's going to be CP3, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green. How do you feel about that?
It ain't that bad. I like it. I think that it's an interesting one where as long as you're not going up against a team that has size, I think that that's a great lineup. And I think Chris Paul will make a lot of great decisions with that. And he'll set up Steph and he'll set up Klay in ways that even Draymond couldn't really do, because there's a difference between running pick and roll and running the DHO and running pick and roll as a ball handler. You could see Steph and Klay just sprinting around the perimeter as floor spacers for that group. I like it. Now, whether that actually means anything, and if they can't really guard anybody with that small of a group, I think that's fair. But I think I would probably what I had before free agency and before seeing what the Lakers did, seeing if the Clippers actually were to get Harden, I had it as Nuggets, Suns, Warriors in my top 3 regular season teams, because I just think that CP3 will be able to run a lot of those units that Steph Curry's not on the floor for. So there's at least some interesting stuff with that group. But when you get down to trying to guard Nikola Jokic, they're going to struggle with that.
Yeah, I think that's fair if they don't. I think the Lakers are better than the Warriors right now, though. So I would say the Lakers would be 3.
Okay.
The Harden trade doesn't go through. I'm assuming it goes through, and I think the Lakers are going to be 3 or 4. I think that should be your 4 best team. I don't know if that's your 4 best records, though, if that makes sense.
No, of course. I think the Kings, having the continuity that they do, they could still push for that. The Grizzlies probably not, just given that they're missing.
What's the name? What's the dude's name? The EuroLeague MVP they just signed?
Oh God, I don't know. I read that. And I'm I am not going to process that until game 1. That's just not going to happen. But
yeah,
is it Vezenkov or something like that?
Let me see. EuroLeague. I want to get his name right. MVP. It's Sasha Vezenkov. Yeah.
Okay. That was pretty close.
Yeah, 3-year, $20 million deal with the Kings. They re-signed Trey Lyles and Harrison Barnes, and then they just signed Sabonis again. So, yeah. Thunder
also signed Vasna Micic. So
they did.
Vasa Micic. Sorry.
So wait a minute. They have 20 players on the roster. Did you know that?
They'll figure it out.
Do you think the Nuggets can get in there for one of those Patty Mills or Lou or any of them players?
They I mean, I guess like I don't see why they couldn't if they're like. Let me try to pull up their cap sheet just to see like what we're working with here. I am seeing 18 players on their current roster.
Right.
Guys that fit into Denver's TPE are Patty Mills, Kendrick Williams, Poku.
They don't need Kendrick Williams. Stop. They need to stop doing this. Ryan, who did they just draft? Who did they just draft? What's his name? Tell me his name right now.
Hunter Tyson.
They don't need any of these players. Stop hoarding wings.
Julian Strawther, Case and Wallace.
No, I'm saying, who did the Thunder? They just drafted Case and Wallace?
Yeah.
They have 12 wings.
I know.
They're not playing.
I thought you were yelling at me.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm so frustrated. This is so beyond frustrating watching all these players from Nah to Kenridge. You don't need these players. You don't.
I agree. Like I think that Patty would be an interesting one for Denver to add, just from like a veteran perspective. But like choosing between Patty and Reggie, like it's not a great choice. Like you're just is what it is.
Well, at least Patty's won championships, and he's a great pull-up shoot, 3-point shooter, great floor spacer.
I would love to have Kendrick Williams on this roster. Like
there's no way though, because do they still want assets? Are they still accumulating young players? Like, do they want?
No idea. No idea. I think they did that with Patty. They did that with Oladipo, I think. So.
And then the Magic, you just saw they just signed Joe Ingles. You have Anthony Black, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner. You don't need all those wings. They have Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony. You don't need guards. You don't need these players.
I recommended Denver sign Joe Ingles for the taxpayer MLE, like which was $5 million, and he got $11 million a year.
Right.
Guys, I have no idea what Denver could have done. Like, there's just nothing anymore. So it's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But man, like there's a lot of shit that they have to deal with. Like Denver's gonna figure it out. But I mean, in the end, they've still got the best starting five in basketball. Like that's fair. And like one thing that I haven't really mentioned yet. Porter can still get better. Like Porter, I think has a larger room for growth than a lot of people think, because he still was very limited last year in a lot of the things that he could do. Him being able to run a pick and roll or DHO consistently would be really helpful. And he's still learning how to do that. And him not shooting 14% from three.
That solves it right there. Michael Porter Jr. becoming a secondary ball handler with the bench. That solves it right there.
That'd be cool.
That would solve it all right there.
Yeah, there's room for them to do it. And so Denver, I think what I'm going to approach this next regular season with, I'm going to approach it from a different perspective on their rotation, even than this last year, which I think I did pretty well with. But I think this rotation is going to have to evolve for Michael Malone in a lot of different ways. There's a lot that they've got to change, and they can. But if Denver wants to stay at the top of their game, they're going to have to be adaptable. And that's something that Michael Malone's going to have to continue to learn.
Look, I want to apologize to the audience and to Ryan. I apologize for yelling.
I was so scared.
But the last 3 days have been frustrating, and I've watched all these players. They're just sitting on these teams. Right. The only thing Kendrick Williams is known for in his OKC career is being the player LeBron James hit his 38,000th, whatever point it was, shot versus. That's it. Let him go play for a championship team. That's all I'm saying.
Nice. It'll be nice. Man, it's been good to talk to you again, my friend. Let's get out of here. I think that we've earned it. Everybody, enjoy your holiday weekends, of course, and stay safe. Fireworks are not something to mess around with too much.
Buy an Uber. Yeah. Get an Uber, get in Lyft. It's no excuse. Uber and Lyft. Call a friend, please.
I agree. There's a lot that we can go over still, but we're going to save it for some future episodes. We've got plenty of opportunity to do so. But for this episode, I think that's going to do it for Weekends with Swipa. Any final parting thoughts, my guy?
Life is good. July's the best month of the year. Stay safe. Enjoy your family and your friends and your loved ones. Don't let Elon Musk tell you that if you're on Twitter for more than 600 tweets a day, you don't have a life. It's like some people work on social media, and maybe we have friends on social media. Like, I don't understand that. Anyway, don't let a billionaire tell you how you want to spend your money and use your time. You could always be in, hyper-capitalism and, making people work for pennies on a dollar and making all your money off of them. But who knows? Who knows? What do I know?
I'm waiting for that blue sky invite. So if anybody's got that blue sky invite, hit a guy up. That's where I want to go. We're going to take this party somewhere else. That's just how it's going to be. He is Swipa Cam. I'm Ryan Blackburn. Make sure to follow our channels on each of Swipa Cam and Mile High Sports channel. Go follow him on Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter. Hit that like button on the way out. We will talk to you guys next weekend.